Before this night is over, the scent of gun oil and splintered pine will be the last thing one of them ever smells. But for now, the only casualty is the truth. Tonight, we're looking at what happens when loyalty becomes treason, when a cause you despise is happening right in front of you, and when your own family calls you a fool for believing in the world you were born into. It's a story about a charming but maddeningly stubborn traitor named Naomi Young, her arrogant idealist of a brother, and a friendly, greedy midwife who stands to profit from it all. It's a stark little reality check, isn't it? We love to romanticize history, but the truth is, if you were dropped into the middle of 1776, you probably wouldn't survive the year. It was a time of conviction, yes, but also a time of dysentery, paranoia, and startlingly personal violence. So before we get too comfortable in this very uncomfortable time, take just a quiet moment to like the video and subscribe. But really, only if you genuinely enjoy what we do here. It's always so wonderful to see this community grow. Go ahead and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Alright, now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft ambient hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are Naomi Young, and in the eyes of everyone in this damp, suffocating church, you are the traitor. The revolution for you has always been an annoyance. A distant, dull roar of shouting men with too much time and too little sense. It's the reason the price of tea is an outrage, and the reason good English cloth is impossible to find. It's a headache. A temper tantrum thrown by colonial children who've forgotten their place. But here, tonight, the revolution is the smell of old wood, packed earth, and the metallic tang of fear. It's a storm you've always watched from your window, and now you're standing in the heart of it, feeling the first cold drops of rain. You are standing in a place you should not be, the pulpit of a revolutionary minister. It's a cramped, hexagonal box of dark, unvarnished wood, and it feels like your own personal pillory. Below you, the pews have been pushed back to make room for conspiracy. Men with worried faces and mud-caked boots whisper in tight knots, their voices a low, anxious hum like trapped bees. But your attention, your entire world, is fixed on the man who shares this sacred space with you. He's a soldier. Or at least, he's dressed like one in a rough-spun blue coat that's a shade too big for his wiry frame. He hasn't said a word to you. He hasn't even acknowledged your presence. He is entirely devoted to his musket. With a slow, hypnotic rhythm, he works a greased cloth down the long, dark barrel. Scrape, click, scrape, click. The sound is methodical, meditative. It's the only calm thing in the entire building, and it's the sound of preparing to kill a man. You find the focus of it all deeply, profoundly annoying. He should be nervous. He should be wrestling with the treason he's about to commit, in the name of some lofty, imaginary ideal. Instead, he just cleans his gun, as if he were polishing the family silver. This is all your brother's fault, of course. Naomi, look at them, a voice says, hissing beside you. Uriah. He appears as if summoned by your irritation, his tall, lean frame crowding you against the pulpit's edge. His Quaker gray coat is, as always, impeccably clean, a stark contrast to the grime of this rebellion he so admires. You don't look at him. You keep your eyes on the soldier. I am looking, Uriah. I see a room full of men who ought to be at home with their families, not plotting to upend a perfectly sensible world. Quote, your voice is a low murmur, but it's laced with the charming, unshakable certainty that drives your brother to madness. Uriah scoffs, a sharp, arrogant puff of air. Sensible? Is it sensible that a king 3,000 miles away dictates the life of a farmer in Massachusetts? Is it sensible that our livelihoods are throttled by taxes we have no say in? He gestures with a sweeping, dramatic hand, a preacher in his own right. This is not a plot, sister. This is a birth. We are fighting for the liberty that God himself intends for all men. Quote, there it is, that insufferable, high-minded idealism. You've heard this speech, or variations of it, 100 times over supper, in the market, on walks through the city. You've learned to simply let it wash over you. God intends for us to have order, Uriah, you reply, your tone still infuriatingly placid. He intends for us to honor our sovereign. The crown provides that order. It is a shelter. You and these patriots want to tear down the house because you dislike the color of the curtains. Quote, you can feel his frustration radiating off him like heat from a stove. That's the thing about you, Naomi. You have a way of making grand ideals sound childish. It's a gift. A shelter? He sputters, his voice rising before he catches himself and lowers it to a venomous whisper. A shelter that locks its doors from the inside? That demands everything from you and gives you back shackles? You are so close-minded you cannot see the bars of your own cage. I see a roof over my head, you counter smoothly. And I see you, a man sworn to peace, consorting with men preparing for war. Tell me, brother, how does your conscience square that circle? Quote. His jaw tightens. For a Quaker, a man of nonviolence, it's the one point you have that always lands. He believes in the cause, but he cannot lift a hand to fight for it. So he does this instead. He aids them. He gives them shelter, information, and the sanctimonious blessing of his moral support. In your opinion, it's a worse sort of cowardice. At least the soldier with the musket is honest about his intentions. The soldier, as if hearing your thoughts, stops his work. He lifts the heavy weapon, squinting down the barrel to check his progress. The silence he leaves behind is heavy, thick with the unsaid arguments of the room. In that silence, a flicker of something unwelcome dances at the very edge of your mind. A tiny, treacherous spark of doubt. You look away from the soldier and finally let your eyes drift over the men below. They don't look like the drunken, rabble-rousing caricatures from the Loyalist papers. They look like your neighbors. There's the blacksmith, his powerful arms crossed over his leather apron, his face etched with worry. There's the baker, flowers still dusting his eyebrows, looking small and lost without the warmth of his ovens. They are not monsters. They are tired, frightened men who have been pushed to a place you cannot comprehend. The comfort you've always found in the familiar structures of the crown, in the predictable and orderly power of the king, suddenly feels a little less like a shelter and a little more like ignorance. A willful blindness. You dismiss the thought as quickly as it comes. It's the oppressive atmosphere of this place. The damp air is thick with sedition. It's bound to infect one's thinking. They're fools, you murmur, more to yourself than to Uriah. They will be hanged. And for what? A pamphlet and a pretty slogan. They will be free, Naomi, Uriah says, his voice softer now, tinged with a sad pity that you find more insulting than his arrogance. And you will have to choose which side of history you want to be on. Before you can formulate a reply, a sharp rap at the church's main door cuts through the low murmur of voices. The room falls instantly silent. Every man turns, hands hovering near pistols tucked into belts or resting on the stocks of their own long rifles leaned against the pews. The soldier in the pulpit with you moves with a sudden, startling speed. He brings the musket to a ready position, the heavy butt of it resting against his shoulder. It's no longer a tool being cleaned, it's a weapon. The quiet, methodical man is gone, replaced by something sharp and dangerous. The change is so absolute it takes your breath away. Another knock, harder this time. A man near the door, a stout fellow with a weathered face, calls out in a low, trembling voice, "Who goes there?" Quote. A woman's voice replies from the other side, clear and surprisingly cheerful. "Just Levi Clark, here to see about the minister's wife. Heard she's nearing her time." Quote. Levi Clark, the midwife. A wave of relief washes through the room. The men relax, their shoulders slumping. The blacksmith chuckles nervously. Of course, everyone knows Levi. She's friendly, always has a smile, and a bit of harmless gossip. She has delivered half the babies in this town, yours and your brother's included. She is a constant, a comforting presence. But as the heavy bar on the door is lifted, you watch the soldier beside you. He doesn't relax. He doesn't lower the musket. His eyes are narrowed, his knuckles white where he grips the dark wood of the stock. He is watching the door as if he expects a demon to walk through it, not a kindly midwife. And in that moment, as the door creaks open to reveal Levi Clark's smiling, rosy-cheeked face, that flicker of doubt in your mind returns, this time as a cold, creeping dread. The revolution is no longer a dull roar in the distance. It is here, in this room, and it is holding a loaded gun. You look from the soldier's rigid form to Levi's easy smile, and you understand with a sickening certainty that one of them is lying, and you are trapped in the pulpit right between them. Levi Clark steps over the threshold, bringing a gust of night air and the scent of damp earth with her. She is a woman built for comfort, soft and round in her woolen shawl, her face a pleasant map of fine lines earned from smiling. She beams at the room full of tense men, entirely unfazed by the sight of 24 patriots armed for a fight in the house of God. Goodness me, she says, her voice as warm as mulled cider. Quite a prayer meeting you're having, Thomas. She winks at the stout man who let her in. I trust the Lord is listening. A few men manage weak, reciprocal smiles. The tension in the room loosens like a knot being worked free. Your brother Uriah lets out a breath you hadn't realized he was holding. He turns to you, his eyes gleaming with smug victory. You see? A midwife. Your great conspiracy is a woman come to deliver a baby. Perhaps the shelter of the crown has made you see redcoats in every shadow. You don't dignify him with a response. Your gaze is locked on Levi, but you are acutely aware of the soldier beside you. He has not moved. The musket is still pressed to his shoulder, its long barrel aimed not at Levi, but at the open doorway behind her. He is watching for who might follow. His stillness is a counterpoint to the relief rippling through the pews, a silent, disciplined dissent that validates the unease coiling in your stomach. Levi pays the soldier no mind. Her eyes scan the room, her friendly gaze flitting from face to face. It's a performance you've seen 100 times. Levi, collecting the town's news, gauging its mood. Her occupation grants her access to every home, every confidence. Midwives and ministers, you've always thought, know more secrets than the king's own spies. The minister's wife is resting for now, says the baker, wiping his sweaty palms on his apron. He's with her. But she's grateful you've come, Levi. Her pains are coming faster. Quote, as they do, Levi says with a knowing nod. Well, I'll just wait. No sense rushing a babe before it's ready to greet the world. She gestures toward a shadowy alcove near the vestry. I brought some herbs for a calming tea. I'll just prepare them. Don't mind me. She ambles away from the main gathering, her basket on her arm. The men turn back to their hushed conversations, the brief interruption forgotten. Uriah gives you one last look of pitying disdain before drifting down from the pulpit to speak with the blacksmith. You are left alone in your pillory with the silent soldier in your churning thoughts. But you watch her. Your annoyance has sharpened into a predatory focus. You can't shake the soldier's reaction. Men like him, men who live with the casual intimacy of violence, do not startle at phantoms. He saw something or sensed something that your brother and all his idealistic patriots missed. From your elevated perch, you can see the alcove where Levi has settled. It's a space cluttered with discarded hymnals and stacks of firewood. Shadows cling to it, making it a pocket of near darkness. You watch as she sets down her basket and begins to sort through small, cloth-wrapped bundles. A moment later, another man detaches himself from a group near the back and drifts toward her. It's the courier, or at least, you assume he is. He's no one of consequence, a young farmhand named Silas, barely old enough to grow a proper beard. You've seen him 1,000 times, hauling feed or mending fences. You lean forward, resting your arms on the pulpit's edge, feigning a weary disinterest in the proceedings below. Your heart, however, has begun a nervous, frantic beat against your ribs. Silas reaches the alcove. He doesn't look at Levi, instead busying himself with the woodpile, as if selecting the driest logs. The damp's gotten to this lot, he murmurs, his voice too low to carry far, but in the charged silence of the church, you catch it. Won't burn hot. Levi doesn't look up from her herbs. It's the seasoning, Silas. Greenwood needs time, you can't force it. She holds up a sprig of what looks like rosemary. This is ready, strong, good for clearing the head. He turns his head just slightly. My mother has the room, she swears by willow bark. Willow bark is for fevers, Levi corrects him gently, and it must be stripped from a living branch. From a tree near the water. That is what gives it its power. She places the rosemary sprig aside and picks up a small, tightly bound bundle of dried lavender. She begins to unwrap it. Tell me, is the old bridge still sound? The one over Miller's Creek? Barely, Silas mutters, picking up a log and examining its end. A heavy wagon would go right through it. The road to the north is better, firmer ground. Is it now? Levi says, her fingers working at the string on the lavender. That's good to know. A woman in my state can't be too careful about the road she travels. She finishes unwrapping the lavender, and a small, folded piece of paper, no bigger than your thumb, falls from its center into her open palm. You have to strain your eyes to see it. With a movement so smooth it's almost invisible, she slips it into the pocket of her apron. She then reties the lavender with a different knot, a series of complicated loops. "You tell your mother," Levi says, her voice returning to its normal, cheerful volume, "that she needs lavender for her aches, and 3 drops of oil of clove in her tea. No more, no less. For 3 nights. You remember that?" Quote, 3 drops. "For 3 nights," Silas repeats, his voice flat. He sets the log back on the pile. "I'll tell her." He nods once, a jerky, nervous gesture, and melts back into the crowd. The entire exchange took less than a minute. To anyone else, it was a midwife giving a boy instructions for his ailing mother. But you saw it. The living branch by the water, the unsafe bridge, the better road north, 3 drops, 3 nights. It was a language hidden in plain sight, a conversation of ghosts held in a crowded room. And Levi, your friend, the woman who held you when your own mother died, the woman who showed you how to soothe a colicky baby, she is a spy, a traitor, not a loud pamphleteering one like your brother, but a quiet, far more dangerous one. The greedy midwife, you realize, isn't just profiting from births. She's profiting from information, selling secrets under the guise of selling herbal remedies. Scrape. Click. The sound from beside you makes you jump. The soldier has resumed his task. He pushes the greased cloth down the barrel, his movements as steady and inexorable as a clock's pendulum. Scrape. Click. The sound is no longer annoying. It's the sound of the consequence for what you just witnessed. It's the sound of a firing squad, of a hangman's trapdoor. It's the rhythm of the war that has just become terrifyingly real. All the official pronouncements from the royal governor, all the sneering caricatures in the loyalist papers you've read, they all painted these rebels as a disorganized, drunken rabble, a temporary inconvenience. But this was not chaos. This was a network. It was quiet, it was disciplined, and it was hidden within the very fabric of your community. It was in your church, in your midwife, in the farm boy down the lane. The crown's promise of order, the bedrock of your entire world, suddenly feels like a lie, a comforting, beautiful, and utterly fragile lie. It is not a shelter, it's a gilded cage, and you've just noticed that the door has been open the entire time. You simply refused to see it. You look at Uriah, standing with the blacksmith, his face earnest and alive as he speaks of liberty. You've always seen him as a fool, chasing an impossible dream. But what if he's not the fool? What if you are? The thought is a physical blow, knocking the air from your lungs. You feel caught, snagged between the life you've always known, the world of order, loyalty, and the king, and this terrifying, secret world that is breathing all around you, your family or your conscience. But your conscience is no longer clear. It's a muddled, fearful thing. You are torn. The steady, predictable world of the crown pulls at you, the life you understand. But the discovery of this hidden rebellion, of Levi's secret life, pulls you in a different direction with the shocking force of revelation. The two forces grind against each other inside you, a friction that creates a terrible, burning heat. Scrape. Click. The soldier finishes his work. He lays the ramrod aside. The musket is clean. It is ready. He glances at you, his eyes, for the first time, meeting yours. They are not the eyes of a fanatic or a fool. They are clear, calm, and utterly resolved. In their depths, you see not treason, but a terrible, unwavering certainty. It's the same certainty you used to have. And you realize with a jolt of pure terror, you don't know whose side you are on anymore. He gives you a slow, deliberate nod. It is not a gesture of greeting or of solidarity. It is an acknowledgement. He saw you watch the exchange in the alcove. He knows that you know. The knowledge lands in your gut like a lead weight. And suddenly the cramped pulpit feels less like a pillory and more like a trap. He turns his gaze back toward the main floor of the church, his duty done, leaving you to grapple with the terrifying implications of that shared, silent moment. You are now a liability, or an asset. You are no longer an observer. The hushed meeting begins to break apart, not with a formal adjournment, but like a mist dissolving. Men peel away from their small groups in 2s and 3s, slipping out a side door into the anonymity of the night. Their movements are quiet, practiced. The choreography of a conspiracy that has met many times before. The stout man, Thomas, extinguishes most of the candles, plunging the church back into a gloom of long, dancing shadows. The revolution is over for the night. Now begins the dangerous walk home. Uriah materializes at the base of the pulpit, his face etched with impatience. "Well, are you satisfied? No midnight raids, no arrests, just a midwife and a few concerned citizens." He extends a hand to help you down, his arrogance fully restored. "Come, I'll see you home." I pray some of their courage might have brushed off on you. You ignore his offered hand, stepping down from the pulpit on your own. You feel unsteady, as if the floor itself has tilted beneath your feet. "Courage?" you murmur, your voice tight. "Is that what you call this?" You don't look at him. You look past him, to the back of the church where a few men still linger. The soldier from the pulpit is there, along with two others who look just as hardened. They've gathered near the door, their muskets held loosely but ready. Levi Clark is gone, having slipped away as quietly as she arrived, leaving only the faint scent of lavender in her wake. "It is the very definition of it," Uriah insists, falling into step beside you as you move slowly toward the main aisle. "To stand for what is right in the face of tyranny." Your focus is on the soldiers. They are speaking in low tones, confident that they are alone. You slow your pace, pretending to adjust the buckle on your shoe, straining to hear their words over your brother's incessant sermonizing. "Took everything," one of the soldiers is saying, a man with a raw, sunburned neck. "The Loring family, down by the marshes, weren't even patriots. Just had the misfortune of being on the road to Lexington. Redcoat said they were foraging for the king's army. They took the milk cow, the winter grain, even the daughter's wedding linen." Quote, "That's the work of the regulars," a second soldier grunts, spitting a wad of tobacco juice onto the packed earth floor. "They think everything in this land is theirs for the taking. It's the Hessians I worry about." "The German butchers. Heard what they did in Jersey? Burned a whole village because they suspected one man was hiding a rifle." One man. The sanitized version of the British Army, the one you've always held in your mind, a disciplined, honorable force maintaining the king's peace, begins to fray at the edges. You've read the official reports. They speak of restoring order, of confiscating weapons from dangerous rebels. They don't speak of wedding linens and milk cows. They don't speak of entire villages paying the price for the suspected crime of one. The soldier from the pulpit, the man whose methodical cleaning of his musket so annoyed you, speaks for the first time. His voice is quiet, but it carries a weight that silences the other two. "It isn't about what they take," he says. "It's about what they leave behind. Fear. That's their goal. They want us too afraid to stand, too afraid to even speak." I saw a boy, no older than 12, near Concord. He'd been whipped. Not for fighting, not for spying, for shouting, "God save the Congress," at a passing patrol. They left him tied to a post in the town square as a message. The soldier's voice is flat, devoid of emotion, a simple recitation of fact. And that, you realize, is the most terrifying thing about it. This brutality isn't an aberration to him. It's the landscape. It's the world he lives in. Uriah tugs at your sleeve. "Naomi, what are you doing? Let us go." You pull your arm away, your gaze still fixed on the soldiers. The king's peace. The crown's order. That order, you now understand, is not a shelter. It is a threat. It's the peace of a graveyard, the order of a prison yard, maintained by the lash and the torch. The men in this room are not trying to tear down a house, because they dislike the curtains. They are trying to keep the roof from collapsing on their heads. You turn and walk away, leaving Uriah sputtering in your wake. You move through the main doors and out into the cold, damp night. The air is a shock, sharp and clean after the suffocating atmosphere of the church. Uriah catches up to you, his long strides easily matching your own. "What has gotten into you?" he demands. "You've been silent as a stone since that midwife arrived." You don't answer. You can't. What would you say? That Levi, the woman who delivered him, is a spy? That the loyalists you've championed your entire life are little better than violent thieves? That for the first time, you understand why he is willing to risk everything for this cause? To say any of it would be to admit your world is a lie, so you remain silent, wrapping your shawl tighter around you, and let him mistake your turmoil for stubbornness. The walk home is a journey through a city you no longer recognize. Every shadow seems to hold a secret. Every shuttered window seems to watch you pass. The familiar cobblestones feel alien under your feet. This is your home, the place you were born, but you feel like a foreigner in it. Sleep does not come. In the quiet of your bedroom, with the familiar weight of your quilt and the soft ticking of the mantel clock, your mind is a battlefield. You pace the floorboards, the cool wood a comfort against your bare feet. The weight of what you know is a physical presence in the room. Levi Clark is passing information. Information about troop movements, about safe roads, about patriot strength. The road to the north is better, firmer ground. 3 drops. For 3 nights. Was that a date? A time? A location? You stop at the window, pushing aside the heavy curtains. The moon is a sliver of bone in a black sky. Below, the street is empty. A perfect, orderly, peaceful night. A lie. Your dilemma presents itself with the stark clarity of a hangman's noose. You could go to the authorities. You could find Captain Davies of the local garrison. You would be precise. You would describe the scene in the church, the code spoken over herbs and firewood, the slip of paper passed in a bundle of lavender. You would be a hero to the crown. You would have done your duty as a loyal subject of the king. Levi would be arrested. Under questioning, she would give up the others. Silas, the baker, the blacksmith, maybe even the minister. The network would unravel, and Uriah, your foolish, arrogant, insufferable brother, your blood, would be implicated. His association with them, his presence in that church, would be enough to see him arrested for treason. They would hang him. You would have upheld the law by sacrificing your own family. The thought makes you feel sick. You press your forehead against the cold window pane. Or you could do nothing. You could swallow this secret, let it live inside you like a poison. You could pretend you saw nothing, heard nothing. You could go on as before, attending loyalist teas and complaining about the price of goods, all while knowing that your silence was a shield for the rebellion. You would be protecting Uriah. You would be protecting Levi, the woman whose hands were the first to ever hold you. But you would be a traitor. Not in the eyes of the patriots, but in your own. You would be betraying every principle you have ever held, every belief that has ever defined you. And if your silence were ever discovered, if someone else noted Levi's treachery and you were found to have known, it wouldn't just be Uriah on the gallows. You would be beside him. The silence of the room is broken by the echo of a sound in your memory. Scrape. Click. The soldier's musket. The sound of preparation. The sound of consequence. He was preparing to kill for his cause. What are you prepared to do for yours? The question is, you no longer know what your cause is. Is it the abstract, distant king whose soldiers whip children for shouting a slogan? Or is it the real, tangible people in your life? Your brother, your neighbor, the midwife who brought you into this complicated, terrifying world? The shifting sands of loyalty. The phrase comes to you, unbidden. Your feet, once planted on the firm bedrock of tradition and fealty, are now sinking. There is no solid ground anywhere. You are caught in a tide, pulled in 2 directions at once, and you know, with a certainty that chills you to the soul, that whichever way you turn, you will drown someone you love. The moon has long since abandoned the sky, leaving only a faint pre-dawn grayness to filter through your window. You have not slept. The floorboards are worn smooth beneath the frantic path you've paced all night. The choice, you realize, was never a choice at all. It was an illusion. To go to the authorities would be to sign your brother's death warrant. To do nothing would be to wait for fate, or Levi's carelessness, or the crown's ever-tightening grip to do it for you. Both paths lead to Uriah's destruction. Both lead to your own. There is only one other path. A narrow, treacherous track through the heart of the conflict, one that requires you to become the very thing you have always despised. The memory of the soldier's clear, resolute eyes returns to you. His certainty. He was not fighting for a pamphlet or a slogan. He was fighting against the lash, against the stolen grain, against the fear. He was fighting for the boy whipped in the square. You don't have to believe in their imaginary liberty to understand that. You only have to believe in the cold, hard reality of the British boot on your neighbor's neck. And you do. You finally, horribly do. Your cause, you decide in the quiet chill of your room, is not the revolution. Your cause is Uriah. It is Levi for all her greed. It is the baker with flour on his brow. Your cause is survival, and if survival means treason, then you will learn to be a very good traitor. The charming certainty that once defended the king can just as easily be used to deceive him. The thought sends a thrill of pure terror through you, followed by a cold, unfamiliar calm. It is the calm of the soldier cleaning his musket. You have found your resolve. Later that morning, you walk to the market, your basket on your arm. The pretense is easy, as natural as breathing. You are simply Naomi Young, on your way to buy eggs and complain about the quality of the local butter. You nod to acquaintances, offering the same small, tight smile of disapproval at the state of things you always have. Your performance is flawless because, in a way, it is not a performance. You still find the rebellion and annoyance, its leaders insufferable. You have simply changed your definition of the greater threat. You find Levi Clark near the fishmonger's stall, haggling with a boisterous good humor. She is holding a large cod, examining its gills with a practiced eye. She sees you approach, and her smile widens. "Naomi, dear, look at this specimen. A fine kettle of fish tonight, I think." "It's a wonder there are any fish left," you reply, your voice perfectly pitched to your usual tone of weary complaint. "With the king's ships blockading the harbor and these rebels disrupting the fishing boats." Quote. Levi chuckles, a warm, rolling sound. "Oh, the world will always find a way to feed itself, one way or another." She hands the fishmonger a few coins, and he wraps the cod in a piece of rough paper. As she turns back to you, her eyes, though friendly, are sharp. They assess you, searching for the reason behind this visit. "I came to ask after the minister's wife," you say smoothly, "and the babe." "A healthy boy," she beams. "Cried loud enough to wake the dead, which is just what you want to hear. The mother is tired but well." Quote. "Good, that is good." You pause, fiddling with a loose thread on your basket. "And your herbs, Levi. The ones you spoke of in the church. The lavender for Silas's mother." "I find my own sleep has been troubled of late." The air between you shifts. The noise of the market seems to fade. Levi's smile does not falter, but a new stillness comes over her. She knows this is not about sleep. "Lavender is a gentle comfort," she says, her voice still light. "But it is not for everyone. Some ailments require something stronger, something more specific. It all depends on what one is trying to cure." Quote. This is the moment, the point of no return. You look her directly in the eye. "I find myself afflicted with a peculiar condition. I keep hearing things. At tea, with the wives of the garrison officers. At dinner, with my father's shipping associates who do business with the army quartermaster." Quote. Levi's grip tightens on her wrapped fish. Her knuckles are white. You lean closer, your voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that could be mistaken for gossip. "They talk so freely, you see. They believe me to be one of them, a true loyalist. It's amazing what one can overhear. For instance, did you know that General Howe is growing impatient with the quality of local cart horses? He's planning to requisition 20 of the strongest draft animals from the surrounding farms. They have a list. They plan to send a patrol to collect them, in 3 nights. You watch her face. The friendly, greedy midwife is gone. In her place is a shrewd calculator, a woman weighing risk against reward. The information is valuable, immensely so. Losing 20 draft horses would cripple the local farmers and, by extension, the rebels' ability to move supplies. But the source is a known loyalist, a viper offering an apple. That is a worrisome piece of news, Levi says carefully, her eyes darting around the market. A person might be very grateful to hear such a thing in advance, but gratitude is a cheap coin, and talk is cheaper still. "I'm not interested in coin," you say, your voice cold and clear. "I am interested in ensuring my brother does not hang for his foolish idealism. You and your friends will keep him safe. You will keep his name out of whatever trouble you stir up. In exchange, I will help you hear things." Quote. Levi studies you for a long, silent moment. You can practically see the gears turning in her mind. You are an asset, a spy, in the one place they cannot access, the inner circle of the loyal elite. The risk is immense, but the potential profit is greater. Finally, a slow, genuine smile spreads across her face. It is not the warm, comforting smile of the midwife. It is the sharp, satisfied smile of a predator that has just cornered a surprising new form of prey. "Troubled sleep is a terrible thing, Naomi," she says, her voice returning to its familiar warmth. "Come to my home this evening, just after sundown. Use the back garden gate. I have a special blend of chamomile. It is very effective." She pats your arm, a gesture of finality, and moves off into the crowd, leaving you standing alone with the scent of fish and the chilling reality of the bargain you have just made. Your life splits in two. By day, you are the perfect Tory daughter. You pour tea for Mrs. Davies, the garrison captain's wife. A woman with a face like a clenched fist and a voice that could curdle milk. You listen to her complain about the insolence of the colonials, the humidity, the utter lack of decent society. You nod and agree. All charming deference and shared frustration. Captain Davies says they've rounded up another handful of those Sons of Liberty, she tells you one afternoon, snapping a biscuit in half with vicious satisfaction. He plans to make a real example of them this time. A public flogging. Should happen by the end of the week, once they've persuaded them to name their conspirators. Quote, "You feel a cold dread creep up your spine, but you just sip your tea. An example is long overdue," you say calmly. Order must be maintained. And later that night, a note written in a code of household ingredients. So many ounces of flour for the number of prisoners, a spoonful of salt for the location, a drop of molasses for the timing, is tucked inside a hollowed-out loaf of bread and left on the back step of the bakery. By night, you are a ghost. You move through darkened alleys and overgrown gardens, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. You meet not with the leaders, not with the impassioned orators like your brother, but with the quiet cogs of the machine. The baker, who takes your coded messages and passes them on. The stable hand who reports on the movements of military horses. The tavern girl who overhears the boasts of drunken redcoats. You are one of them, a creature of the shadows, bound by a shared, desperate secret. The contrast is dizzying. One afternoon, you are discussing the latest fashions from London with ladies who consider the revolution a distasteful bit of street theater. 12 hours later, you are standing in a damp cellar that smells of earth and rotting apples, listening to the blacksmith describe how to disable a cannon carriage with a single, well-placed iron wedge. Your relationship with Uriah becomes a masterpiece of deception. He sees your continued attendance at Loyalist functions, hears the reports of your unwavering Tory sentiments, and his arrogance curdles into a kind of sorrowful pity for you. "I heard you were at tea with the captain's wife again," he says one evening, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Naomi, how can you sit with those people? They are butchers and thieves." "They are the legitimate authority," you counter, your voice even. And Mrs. Davies serves an excellent Ceylon. You, on the other hand, associate with men who will lead you to the gallows. "We each choose our company, brother." He looks at you, at your calm, unshakable facade, and sees the close-minded sister he has always known. He cannot see the lie in your eyes, cannot know that the information you glean between servings of Ceylon and idle gossip has already saved 3 of his butchers and thieves from a surprise raid on their secret cache of gunpowder. You let him believe the lie. It is safer for him, but every pitying look he gives you is a small cut, a reminder of the chasm that has opened between you, a chasm you dug yourself, spade by spade, in the dark. You are more involved in his cause than he could ever imagine, and he has never been more of a stranger to you. The lie becomes your life. Weeks bleed into a month, then 2. The rhythm of your deception is as familiar now as the scrape and click of the soldier's musket was that first night. You are 2 people, perfectly and perilously balanced. There is the Naomi who sips tea with Loyalists, her face a mask of bored disdain for the rebellion. Then there is the Naomi who meets the baker in the pre-dawn mist, her hands trembling as she passes him a list of names, a list of men to be warned, a list she copied from a stolen dispatch while its owner was distracted by a 3rd glass of port and her charmingly vapid chatter about the London season. The strain is a constant, grinding pressure behind your eyes. You sleep in short, dreamless bursts and wake with the taste of fear in your mouth. You see suspicion in every friendly glance from a redcoat, and you see accusation in every loving look from your brother. You are walking a razor's edge in a high wind, and you know, with the fatalism of a gambler on their last coin, that you cannot keep your balance forever. The fall comes on a Tuesday. It is a day of unnatural stillness. The humid summer air hangs heavy and thick, smelling of rain that will not fall. The revolution seems to be holding its breath. There have been skirmishes to the south, ugly, brutal affairs with losses on both sides. The city is a tinderbox of rumor and paranoia. People stay indoors. The market is half empty. It is a day that feels like a prelude. You are in your parlor, mending a tear in one of Uriah's shirts. The simple domestic task is a comfort, a link to the person you used to be. The needle moves in and out of the fine gray linen, a tiny, orderly motion in a world spiraling into chaos. You are so lost in the smallness of the task, that you don't hear the front door open. You don't hear the footsteps in the hall. You only look up when a shadow falls over you. It is Uriah. He is standing in the doorway, and the sight of his face stops your heart. The pitying disappointment you have grown used to is gone. In its place is a cold, white-hot fury you have never seen before. It is the righteous anger of a zealot, but it is fractured by a deep, harrowing pain. He looks utterly broken. In his outstretched hand he holds a small, folded piece of paper. You recognize it instantly. It is the note you'd given the baker's boy this morning, the one detailing the route of a British patrol meant to ambush a rebel supply line. The code is simple, almost childishly so. A recipe for Johnny cakes, with the measurements indicating numbers and the ingredients indicating locations. It's a code you and Levi devised for just this purpose. I found this, Uriah says, and his voice is a raw, ragged thing, stripped of all its usual arrogance. The boy, the baker's boy, he was taken by a patrol. He dropped it. I was there. I saw it fall. He takes a step into the room, his movements stiff, uncoordinated. They didn't see it. I picked it up. I thought it was just a recipe. But I know your hand, Naomi. I've known it my entire life. You place the shirt and needle aside, your hands strangely steady. The moment you have been dreading has arrived, and a strange calm descends. The terror of anticipation is always worse than the reality of the blow. Uriah, you begin, but the name is a stone in your throat. Don't, he says, his voice cracking. He shakes the paper at you, a gesture of profound betrayal. Don't you dare speak my name. Not after this. Not after... What is this, Naomi? What is this poison? He smooths the paper out on the small parlor table, his finger jabbing at the words. 2 cups of cornmeal from the Old North Mill, a pinch of salt from the rope walk by the wharf. Bake for 1 hour when the western road is clear. This isn't a recipe. It's a map. It's a warning. He looks up from the paper, and his eyes are brimming with a terrible, wounded confusion. All this time, the tea with the captain's wife, the sneering at the patriots, the lectures on loyalty to the crown. All of it a lie, a complete and utter lie. His voice rises, gaining a strength born of pure outrage. My own sister. Spying. For us. For the cause you despise. You stood in that church and called us fools. You looked me in the eye and called me a coward. And all the while you were slinking through the shadows like a common criminal. Quote, the dam of his composure breaks. He slams his fist on the table, making the porcelain thimble jump and roll to the floor. Do you have any idea what you have done? You've made a mockery of everything. Of the cause. Of the crown. Of this family. He gestures wildly around the pristine parlor. Who are you, Naomi? What do you even believe in anymore? Or is it all just a game to you? A way to feel important in a world that's frightening you? Quote, his words are stones, and they hit their mark. You flinch, but you hold his gaze. The charming, close-minded woman you have been pretending to be falls away, leaving only the raw, exhausted strategist beneath. A game? You repeat, your voice low and trembling with a fury that matches his own. You think this is a game? I have spent every waking moment of the last 2 months terrified. Terrified that a stray word would send me to the gallows. Terrified that every knock on the door was the patrol coming to arrest me. I have lied to people I once called friends. I have smiled in the faces of men I know are murderers. And I have done it all for one reason. You rise from your chair, moving to stand before him, forcing him to see the truth in your eyes. I did it for you, Uriah. You with your noble speeches and your head full of righteous ideals. You, who walked into that church full of armed men without a single thought for the consequence. While you were preaching about liberty, I was listening to them talk about the new gallows they're building on the common. They aren't for show, brother. They are for you. They are for the baker and the blacksmith and every other good foolish man you have convinced to follow you. Quote, his anger seems to falter, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face, but it is quickly replaced by the stubborn pride you know so well. We know the risks, we accept them, we fight for something greater than ourselves, a concept I know you cannot possibly grasp. Oh, I grasp it perfectly, you counter, your voice dripping with a bitterness that has been fermenting for months. The greater good is a beautiful thing to die for. I was simply trying to prevent you from having to do it. That note, you point to the paper on the table, was to keep a dozen of your men from walking into a slaughter. Is their survival not part of your greater good? Quote, he is silent. He has no answer for that. He looks from your face to the note and back again. The storm of his anger is passing, leaving a wreck of confusion and sorrow in its wake. He sinks into a chair, his head in his hands. The sounds from the street filter in, a distant shout, the rumble of a heavy wagon. The revolution, always present, always waiting just outside the door. I don't understand you, he whispers into his palms. I look at you, and I see a stranger. You despise this fight. I do, you admit, the truth of strange relief. I think it is madness. I think it will ruin us all. But you are my brother. That is the one thing, the only thing, that is not a lie. The world I believed in, the order of the crown, the peace of the king, it was an illusion. I saw that in the church that night. I heard it in the stories of the soldiers. But your world, Uriah, it is just as terrifying. It is built on blood and hope, and I have seen what the king's men do to hope. You kneel before him, a gesture of supplication that costs you more than he will ever know. You reach out, not to touch him, but simply to bridge the space between you. I am not a patriot. I am not a loyalist. I am a woman trying to keep her family from being torn apart by a war that neither of us can control. I chose a side. I chose you. He finally lifts his head. The anger is gone, replaced by a deep, profound sadness. He sees you now. Not the Tory sister, not the rebel spy, but the terrified woman caught in the jaws of a trap he helped to set. The weight of his own idealism, the true cost of his convictions, settles on him. He looks older, weary. What have I done? He says, not to you, but to the room, to the world. I have dragged you into this, my own sister. You didn't drag me, you say, your voice softening. I walked in myself. But Uriah, they will have the boy, the baker's boy. He's young, he will be frightened. They will make him talk. They will learn where he got the note. They will come for the baker, and then they will come for me. Quote, the reality of the situation lands in the room with a sickening thud. The philosophical debate is over. The storm you've been watching from the window is no longer outside. It has broken down the door and is tearing your house apart. Uriah looks at you, his eyes wide with a new kind of fear. Not for himself, but for you. His cause has always been an abstraction, a glorious, righteous crusade. Now it has a face. It is the face of his sister, kneeling before him, her life hanging by the thread of a child's courage. He challenged you to face the consequences, and now you both must. What do we do? He asks, and in those 4 words everything changes. It is no longer you and him, on opposite sides of a divide. It is we. What do we do now? The question hangs in the air, heavy and suffocating as the unfallen rain. For a moment, the world outside, the rumbling wagons, the distant shouts, the entire grinding machinery of the crown's power, fades away. There is only this room, your brother's horrified face, and the ticking clock of your own impending doom. The calm that settled over you when he first confronted you evaporates, replaced by the frantic, cold energy of a cornered animal. We run, you say, the words sharp and definite. There is no other choice. Every other path leads to a cell, to an interrogation, to the gallows. Uriah looks at you, his idealism for once completely absent, replaced by a raw, practical fear. He nods, his jaw tight. Where? Every road is watched. Every inn is filled with sympathizers. Quote, not an inn, you say, your mind racing, piecing together the scraps of information you've gathered in darkened cellars and moonless gardens. The blacksmith. Thomas. His forge backs onto the old tannery alley. It's a rat's maze back there. If anywhere is safe, it's with them. You are already moving, grabbing your heaviest shawl, your mind a flurry of logistics. You are no longer thinking about loyalty or treason. You are thinking about sight lines and patrol routes. You don't take anything else. To pack a bag would be to admit you aren't coming back, a truth too terrible to acknowledge. It would also slow you down. You and Uriah slip out the back door of your home, into the small herb garden that was your mother's pride. It feels like stepping off a cliff. The life you have known, the comfortable parlor, the soft bed, the ticking clock on the mantel is gone. You have just walked out of your own history. The journey across town is a nightmare of imagined dangers. Every flicker of a lantern in a window is a sentry. Every clatter of hooves on cobblestone is a patrol coming for you. You stick to the narrowest alleys, the ones that smell of refuse and damp brick. Uriah, who has always walked with the straight-backed confidence of the righteous, now hunches beside you, his Quaker gray blending into the twilight shadows. He follows your lead without question. You are the strategist now. He is the one who needs shelter. You reach the blacksmith's forge. It is dark, the great hearth cold. A faint scent of coal dust and scorched iron hangs in the air. You knock on the heavy side door, a specific rhythm Levi taught you. 3 quick taps, a pause, then 2 more. 3 drops, for 3 nights. The code feels clumsy and obvious now, a child's game. The door cracks open, a sliver of candlelight revealing a wary eye. It's Thomas, the blacksmith, his broad face grim. He sees Uriah, and his expression softens with recognition. But then his eyes land on you, and his face hardens into a mask of pure suspicion. "Uriah? What is this?" he growls, his voice a low rumble. He makes no move to open the door further. "And you bring her?" "Thomas, you must let us in," Uriah pleads, his voice urgent. "Naomi is in danger. She has been helping us." The blacksmith lets out a short, harsh laugh. "Helping us? By drinking tea with the butcher Davies's wife?" "We know who she is, Uriah. We know what she is." "You know what I let you see," you cut in, your voice sharp, laced with the authority you once reserved for disobedient servants. "Fear has sharpened your tongue to a razor's edge. Now, are you going to let us stand in the alley until a patrol happens by? Or are you going to let us in so I can tell you that the baker's boy was taken an hour ago with one of my notes in his pocket?" Quote, the blacksmith's eyes widen, the amusement vanishes. He pulls the door open, hustling you both inside into the cavernous, shadow-filled space of the forge. The door shuts behind you with a heavy, final thud. Standing in the center of the room, illuminated by a single lantern, is the soldier from the pulpit. He holds no musket now, but his posture is just as rigid, his gaze just as unnervingly direct. "He has been waiting for you." "The boy was taken?" the soldier asks, his voice calm, but with an undercurrent of steel. "Yes," you reply, meeting his gaze. "He will talk. They will come for the baker. And from the baker, they will learn about me." The soldier steps closer. He is shorter than Uriah, but carries himself with an intensity that makes him seem to fill the space. "And why should we care if they come for you, Mistress Young? From what I hear, you are one of them." Quote, "Because," you say, your heart pounding, "for the last 2 months, I have been your best source of intelligence. The raid on the powder cache at Slocum's farm? I gave the warning. The plan to confiscate the printing press from Eads and Gill? I passed on the date. The names of the 3 men arrested last week were on a list for a public flogging. I made sure their families knew to get them out of the city before they could be used as an example." Quote, you tick off your accomplishments like a merchant listing inventory. The blacksmith stares, his mouth slightly agape. Uriah looks at you with a new, dawning comprehension of the risks you have been taking. But the soldier's expression does not change. "You've passed messages," he concedes with a slight nod. "But you are a loyalist. Your brother is a Quaker. Neither of you will lift a weapon. You have no stomach for the real fight. Your loyalty is to your own skin, and nothing more. How do we know this isn't some elaborate trap?" He is right, of course. Everything you have done has been to save Uriah, to save yourself. You don't believe in their cause. You believe in survival. But looking at his hard, unforgiving face, you realize that survival is no longer enough. To win his trust, you must give him something more valuable than a warning. You must give him a weapon. "You're right," you say, the admission startling even yourself. "I did this for my brother, but now I am here, and my life is tied to yours. So let me offer you a demonstration of my value." You take a deep breath. Captain Davies doesn't trust the local couriers. For his most sensitive dispatches to General Gage in Boston, he uses a private agent, a man no one would ever suspect. His name is Levi Clark. The name drops into the silence of the forge like a stone in a deep well. The blacksmith gasps. Uriah looks at you, his face a mask of horrified disbelief. "Levi? The kindly midwife? It's impossible." But the soldier does not look surprised. A flicker of something, respect, understanding, crosses his face. "The midwife," he says, his voice flat. "She has a pass to move through the lines. She attends to the wives of officers. She hears everything. He looks at you, truly looks at you, for the first time. He is seeing past the loyalist daughter, past the terrified sister. He is seeing a strategist. We knew someone was leaking information from the highest levels. We thought it was one of our own. Quote, "She is not one of yours," you state, pressing your advantage. "She sells to both sides. She told me as much herself. Her only cause is profit." You pause, letting the weight of the betrayal sink in. "And I know how she passes her most vital messages to the crown." A coded receipt left with the apothecary on King Street, the one who supplies the garrison with their medical stores. "This is your offering, Levi. The woman who brought you into the world, you have just handed them the rope to hang her with." The thought makes you feel hollowed out. But you don't let it show on your face. This is the currency of your new life. The soldier holds your gaze for a long moment, then turns to the blacksmith. "Get them settled in the loft. They don't leave this forge. Give them food and water. They are our guests." He turns back to you. "My name is John. You will tell me everything you know. Everything." He doesn't say, "I trust you." He doesn't need to. He has said, "You are useful." For now, it is the same thing. Your new life smells of coal, smoke, sweat, and leather. You live in the hayloft above the forge, a cramped space where the heat from the hearth below makes the air thick and wavy. By day, the forge is a working smithy, the clang of hammer on anvil, a constant, rhythmic punctuation to your confinement. By night, it becomes a nerve center of the rebellion. You do not sit idly by. You become their memory, their archive. You sit with John and the blacksmith, Thomas, for hours, drawing maps of the city from memory, marking the homes of prominent loyalists, the patrol routes of the garrison, the weak points in the city's defenses you overheard being discussed over sherry and cakes. Your mind, once occupied with the price of tea and the quality of English cloth, is now a weapon. You catalog names, faces, connections. You take the disparate threads of gossip and rumor you collected and weave them into a coherent tapestry of the enemy's movements. They listen. They are still wary. Their glance is still tinged with suspicion, but they listen. When a plan you helped devise allows them to intercept a shipment of boots and blankets meant for the garrison, the suspicion begins to melt away, replaced by a grudging camaraderie. The baker, who was hidden away before the patrols could find him, brings you a warm loaf of bread, his eyes full of a gratitude that says more than words ever could. You begin to see them not as a collection of rabble-rousing fanatics, but as individuals. Thomas, who hums off-key psalms as he mends a broken rifle lock. A young farm boy named Silas, the same Silas you saw in the church, who misses his mother's cooking and carves intricate birds out of scrapwood in his spare moments. John, the soldier, who is merciless in his planning but gentle when he tends to a comrade's injuries. These men are not the abstract patriots your brother preached about. They are tired, frightened, and fiercely determined. They fight not for a slogan, but for the right to live without fear, for the boy who was whipped, for the farmer whose grain was stolen. You find yourself feeling a fierce, protective loyalty to them. It is no longer just about saving Uriah. It is about saving Thomas and Silas and John. One evening, you are sitting on a crate in a corner of the forge, watching John. The day's work is done, and the other men are sleeping or speaking in low tones. He is sitting by the faint glow of the banked hearth, his musket across his lap. With a slow, hypnotic rhythm, he works a greased cloth down the long, dark barrel. Scrape, click, scrape, click. The sound that once drove you to distraction, the sound that once terrified you with its promise of consequence, now feels different. It is not the sound of treason, it is not the sound of death. It is the sound of readiness. It is the sound of discipline. It is the steady, reassuring heartbeat of this dangerous new world you inhabit. It is the sound of a man preparing to defend his home, his friends, his future. To defend you. In that quiet rhythm, you feel the last vestiges of the old Naomi Young, the charming, close-minded woman who believed in the shelter of the crown, fall away like ash. Her world was a lie, built on a foundation of ignorance. This world of shadow and steel, of fear and courage, is real. The cause is no longer an abstraction you despise. It is the warmth of the forge, the shared bread, the grim resolve in John's eyes. It is your life's calling, forged not in the fire of idealism, but in the desperate, inescapable reality of the fight. You are not a loyalist. You are not a spy acting out of fear. You look at the soldier, listen to the scrape and click of his methodical work, and you know with a certainty that settles deep in your bones that you are a revolutionary. And you are finally home. The world is made of ice, iron, and misery. It is the last week of December, and you are standing on the Pennsylvania bank of the Delaware River, the wind a physical blow that tears the warmth from your bones. The forge in Boston, your life of confinement, seems a distant, almost luxurious memory. You fled there, a refugee, and in the months since, you have become something else entirely. You have followed the ragged, beaten heart of the Continental Army south, through its retreats and its humiliations, and now you stand at the edge of what feels like the end of the world. The revolution, you've learned, is not a series of grand debates. It is hunger. It is the bloody footprints men leave in the snow because their boots have disintegrated. It is the hacking cough that rips through a tent at night, a sound that promises another man will not see the dawn. And it is this, a desperate, suicidal gamble on a frozen river in the dead of night. Washington is here. You've seen him, a grim, towering figure whose face seems carved from the winter landscape itself. His presence lends a solemn gravity to the chaos, but it does little to warm the men. You are huddled with John and a handful of other officers around a sputtering fire, a captured British map spread on a crate between you. It is your map, or rather one you helped to decipher, cross-referencing it with your own detailed knowledge of British garrisons, a knowledge paid for with endless cups of loyalist tea. The Hessians are here. And here, John says, his finger, chapped and raw, tapping 2 points on the map of Trenton. Colonel Roll is a proud man, a drunkard, but a proud one. He thinks we are beaten. He won't be expecting a visit on Christmas. He has pickets posted, an officer counters, his breath a white cloud, on all the main roads. But not here, you say, and they all turn to you. Your voice is steady, stripped of all its former charm, honed to a fine, practical point. You trace a thin, almost invisible line on the map. The old river road. It's barely a path, considered impassable in this weather. The ferryman's son told me the sentries there stay in their huts to keep from freezing. They look, they don't watch. This is your currency now, not gossip, but details, not hearsay, but intelligence. John looks at you, a quick, affirmative nod. There is no suspicion left in his eyes, only the deep, weary trust of two soldiers in the same trench. The river road it is, he says. We cross tonight. We march. We hit them at dawn. Quote, the crossing is an agony of ice and darkness. You are in one of the last boats, huddled in your thick woolen shawl, the wood groaning under the strain. You are not a soldier, but your knowledge has become as vital as their powder and shot. Beside you, Uriah sits, his face pale but serene. He says nothing, his Quaker faith forbidding him from taking part in the violence, but his presence is its own form of defiance. He will not fight, but he will not flee. He will be there to bind the wounds the fighting creates. You look at his quiet resolve and feel a surge of fierce protective love. You chose your side for him, and now you see he has chosen his too. You don't see the battle for Trenton. You are a half-mile back, at a makeshift field hospital set up in a Quaker meeting house, a place so familiar to Uriah it must feel like a sacrilege. But as the wounded are brought in, both American and German, he works with a focused grace, tearing bandages, offering water, his hands gentle and sure. You work beside him, your stomach churning at the sight of the blood matting the snow, but your mind sharp and clear. You are organizing supplies, directing the walking wounded, your voice a calm, authoritative presence in the chaos. The victory is swift, shocking. The fight is over in less than an hour. The sound of battle is replaced by the shouts of triumphant, disbelieving men, and the stunned silence of nearly 1,000 captured Hessians being marched past your post. They look less like the fearsome mercenaries of British propaganda and more like confused, miserable men, their gaudy uniforms a stark contrast to the grim reality of their defeat. You watch them pass, and you feel no hatred, no glee. You only feel the cold, hard fact of what has happened. Your information, your memory, the path you pointed to on a map, helped do this. You have helped capture 1,000 men. The thought is terrifying and exhilarating, but victory is a fleeting warmth. Days later, you are on the move again, this time towards Princeton. The brief flicker of hope from Trenton is nearly extinguished by the brutal reality of the campaign. The men are exhausted, their enlistments are expiring, the revolution is once again bleeding out in the snow. It is during the desperate charge across a frozen field towards Nassau Hall that you see the true cost of it all. You are close enough to the fighting to smell the thick, acrid clouds of gunpowder, to hear the whistle of musket balls overhead. You are crouched behind a stone wall with Uriah and a surgeon, waiting for the inevitable tide of wounded men. Your eyes are fixed on the battle line, a chaotic, shifting mass of blue and red coats. You see John, his quiet discipline transformed into a terrifying battlefield fury, rallying a group of militiamen who had begun to falter. You see him raise his musket, fire, and then move forward with his bayonet. And you see Silas, the young farm boy who carved birds from wood. You see him take a step, raise his rifle, and then crumple, a patch of brilliant red blossoming on the front of his rough-spun coat. He falls without a sound. One moment he is there, a boy fighting for a cause he barely understands, and the next he is just a shape in the snow, as still and silent as the intricate birds he carved. A raw, guttural cry escapes your lips. It is a sound of pure, helpless rage. This is not an abstract loss. This is not a name on a casualty list. It is the boy who missed his mother's cooking. Uriah puts a hand on your arm, his own face a mask of grief. The world you fought to protect, the world of order, of civility, of predictable structures, never prepared you for this. It never showed you the price of its peace. The Crown's order was a lie, but this raw, brutal, heartbreaking fight is the truth. And in that moment, watching Silas lie still in the snow, you know you would choose this terrible truth over that beautiful lie every time. Later, after the fighting has moved on, after the improbable, stunning victory at Princeton has been secured, you find John sitting by a campfire, away from the boisterous celebrations of the men. The victory has cost them dearly. The firelight catches the exhaustion etched on his face. He is holding his musket, and you hear the familiar sound before you see the action. Scrape, click, scrape, click. He is working a greased cloth down the long, dark barrel. His movements are slow, methodical, meditative. You walk over and sit beside him on a log, pulling your shawl tighter. The cold is still bone deep, but the fire helps. For a long time, neither of you speaks. There is nothing to say that the day has not already said. He was a good lad, John says finally, his eyes never leaving his work. Silas, he was brave. Yes, you whisper, he was. You watch his hands. They are steady, sure. The same hands that held a map, that rallied men, that aimed a weapon that took a life, are now tending to that weapon with a quiet reverence. You remember standing in the pulpit watching him perform this same ritual, feeling nothing but annoyance and fear. You saw a zealot preparing a tool of treason. You saw the symbol of a world being torn apart. Now you see something else entirely. You see a craftsman, tending his most vital tool. You see a farmer caring for the plow that will break the hard ground. This musket is not a symbol of oppression. It is not an instrument of chaos. In his hands, it is a tool of liberation. It is the hard-edged, ugly, and necessary instrument that will carve out a new world from the ruins of the old one. It is the final, unanswerable argument against a tyrant. It is the price of hope. Scrape. Click. The sound is no longer annoying. It is not terrifying. It is not even just reassuring. It is the sound of a promise being kept. A promise that a boy like Silas will not have died for nothing. A promise that the men sleeping fitfully in the cold, the men with bloody footprints in the snow, are fighting for something real. The sound is the rhythm of the revolution itself, steady, patient, and inexorable. You look from the musket to the fire, its flames dancing against the infinite dark night, and you understand. You are not fighting to survive anymore. You are fighting to win. The fire spits a shower of orange sparks into the darkness, a brief, defiant constellation against the oppressive winter sky. The sound of John's work, that steady scrape and click, has stopped. The musket is clean. He lays it across his knees, a finished thing, its dark metal gleaming faintly in the firelight. The silence it leaves behind is vast and cold, filled only by the wind moving through the skeletal trees and the distant, miserable cough of a sleeping soldier. The memory of Silas, a still shape in the snow, is a fresh wound. You feel it as a physical ache behind your ribs. That boy's life, a small bright flame, was extinguished for a victory that feels as brittle as river ice. You wonder if this is what it means to be a revolutionary, to learn to live with ghosts, to count your dead and call it progress. Uriah appears out of the gloom, a wraith in Quaker gray. He holds a steaming tin cup in one hand and a folded dog-eared piece of paper in the other. He hands the cup to John, who takes it with a silent nod, then offers the paper to you. "I found this in a haversack," Uriah says, his voice quiet. "Some of the men like to read it, to remember why we're here." You take the paper. It's a cheap printing, the ink slightly blurred, the creases worn soft as linen. Even before you unfold it, you know what it is. You can feel the heat of a different season radiating from it, the memory of a sweltering Philadelphia summer. "Do you remember the day?" Uriah asks, his eyes searching your face. "Not the day it was printed, but the day it was born. The day the world cracked open." You do. The memory rises, unbidden and sharp. The cold of the winter camp recedes, replaced by a suffocating, wet heat that sticks your dress to your skin and makes the air shimmer above the cobblestones. It is July of 1776, and you are in Philadelphia. You are not the woman sitting by this campfire. You are her terrified, resentful predecessor. You are still playing the part of the loyalist daughter, but the role has become a prison. Every smile you offer to a British officer's wife feels like a betrayal, and every coded message you pass to the baker feels like signing your own death warrant. You are there on Levi's instructions, to listen, to watch, to gauge the mood of the city, as the Continental Congress remains locked in debate inside the State House. You stand across the street, seeking the thin shade of a sycamore tree, trying to look like a woman merely waiting for a carriage. The air is thick with tension and the buzz of horseflies. A crowd has gathered, a nervous, sweating mass of artisans, merchants, and laborers. They are waiting. You are all waiting. You watch the closed doors of the State House as if they might burst into flame. You despise this city, this moment, this entire damnable rebellion. It is a fever that has sickened the world you knew, and you pray for it to break. Then it does. The doors open. A bell begins to toll from the steeple, a deep, resonant peal that cuts through the city's humid haze. It is a sound of finality. A man appears on the steps, a document in his hand. The crowd surges forward, a single organism drawn by the gravity of the moment. You are carried with him, your feet barely touching the ground. When he begins to read, his voice rings out over the square. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, each word is a hammer blow against the foundation of your world. The Naomi you were, the girl who believed in the divine order of the crown, hears only heresy. It is the screech of nails on slate, a blasphemous sermon delivered by madmen. She wants to cover her ears, to flee from the poison of these words. But you are no longer just her. You are also the spy, the woman who has seen the secret heart of the rebellion. You have seen the earnest, frightened faces in the church, and you have passed the messages that saved them. And as the man reads on, the words land differently in your other ear. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Quote, liberty. You'd always heard it as a slogan shouted by drunks, but here, read aloud under the oppressive sun, it feels like something else. Not a gift, but a right, a thing you were born with. You think of the soldier in the pulpit, cleaning his musket not for a king, but for himself. You think of the baker, risking the gallows not for a pamphlet, but for the belief that he should not have to ask a king's permission to live his life. The idea is so audacious, so profound, it frightens you more than any British patrol. The reader's voice rises, listing the grievances against the king, and they are no longer abstractions to you. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. You see the wedding linen stolen from the Loring family. You see the village in Jersey burned to ash. You see the welts on the back of the boy who dared to shout a slogan. It is a litany of your own secret education. Finally, the reader reaches the end, his voice filled with a terrible, triumphant solemnity. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Quote, the crowd erupts, a roar of cheers, of shouts, of weeping. Men throw their hats in the air. Strangers embrace. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated hope. But you feel a chill despite the heat. Lives, fortunes, sacred honor. You understand, perhaps better than the cheering men around you, what that pledge truly means. It is not rhetoric. It is a contract, signed in ink, that will be paid in blood. You look at the faces of the delegates now emerging from the State House, men like Adams and Jefferson. Their faces pale with exhaustion and the enormity of what they have done. They are not gods descending from Olympus. They are mortal men who have just willingly placed their heads in the king's noose. And they have placed yours there too. In that moment, you understood your choice. You could not go back to being the loyalist daughter. That world was a gilded cage, and these men had just handed everyone the key, but you were not yet one of them. You were a castaway, stranded on the shore between two warring continents, belonging to neither. The memory fades. The sweltering Philadelphia heat dissolves back into the biting winter air of the camp. You are holding the worn paper in your hands. John and Uriah are watching you, their faces illuminated by the fire. I was there, you say, your voice quiet. I heard it read. I thought they were all fools. Quote, and now? Uriah asks gently. You look from your brother's earnest, seeking face to John's hard, pragmatic one, the idealist and the soldier, the words and the musket. You had spent so long believing they were opposites that you had to choose between them. You see now they are two halves of the same whole. They are the declaration. Now, you say, the words coming slow and sure, I know that document is meaningless without men like John to fight for it, and I know that men like John would have nothing to fight for without it. You look down at the paper, then back at the fire. I thought I was choosing you, Uriah, protecting you from your own foolishness. Then I thought I was just trying to survive. But standing there, on that hot day, listening to those words, I realized the world I was trying to survive in was already dead. It just hadn't been buried yet. You finally understand you are not a loyalist. You are not a patriot. Those are simple words for a world that is anything but. You are a consequence. You are the direct result of a king's tyranny and a rebel's dream. You are a woman who learned the true meaning of order not from a royal decree, but from the methodical scrape and click of a soldier cleaning his gun. Silas is dead, you say, the name a stone in your throat. He pledged his life, and he paid it. My fortune is whatever I can carry, but my sacred honor. You look at the two men who have become your world. My sacred honor is here, in this camp, with you. You fold the paper carefully along its worn creases and hand it back to Uriah. It is no longer just a document. It is a testament. It is Silas's eulogy. It is your oath. The war is not over. There will be more cold nights, more forced marches, more ghosts to live with. But the battle inside of you, the long civil war between the woman you were and the woman you had to become, is finally done. You have reconciled your past, and you are ready for whatever comes next. The fire dies. The sparks ascend one last time and are devoured by the darkness. The cold, which had been held at bay, rushes back in, reclaiming its territory. John rises, the musket held easily in one hand, and gives a slight nod before melting back into the shadows to check on the sentries. He doesn't need to give you orders anymore. You know your place. Uriah pulls his thin gray coat tighter, his face etched with a sorrow that seems deeper than simple exhaustion. The victory at Princeton was a miracle, but miracles, you are learning, are paid for with the lives of boys like Silas. You don't sleep. Instead, you walk through the sleeping camp. It is a city of ghosts, of men huddled together for warmth, their breath pluming in the frigid air. You move from fire to fire, checking on the wounded Uriah cannot reach, offering a spare blanket here, a sip of water there. This is your new domesticity. Your parlor is a frozen field. Your needle and thread are bandages. Your tea is a weak, bitter brew of boiled bark. And you have never felt more at home. The woman who once fretted over the availability of good English cloth now calculates how many days a barrel of salted pork will last 300 men. The transformation is so complete it feels as if you have shed a skin, You find you are no longer afraid of the dark. The shadows that once terrified you in the alleys of Boston are now your allies. The silence of the night is no longer a void where you fear the sound of a patrol's boots, but a canvas upon which you can hear the breathing of an army, the quiet, collective will to survive another day. You are at peace. It is not the placid, ignorant peace you once knew, the peace of a well-ordered life under a king's rule. This is a different kind of peace, a harder kind. It is the peace that comes after a storm has broken, when you stand amidst the wreckage and know, with absolute certainty, that you have survived the worst of it and are strong enough to rebuild. The march to the winter encampment at Morristown begins before the sun has fully breached the horizon. It is not a triumphant parade. It is a slow, agonizing procession of ragged, hungry men. The road is a churned morass of mud and ice. The wind is a constant, whining torment. You walk beside a wagon laden with the most seriously wounded, your shawl pulled tight around your face. Every step is a choice. Every mile is an act of defiance. You watch Uriah moving among the men, his face calm and compassionate. He no longer preaches about liberty, he lives it. He offers a steadying arm to a feverish soldier, shares his own meager ration of hardtack with a man whose pack is empty, and speaks words of comfort that have nothing to do with God's plan and everything to do with simple human kindness. He catches your eye over the shuffling ranks, and for the first time in your life, there is no judgment between you. There is only a shared, profound understanding. You had to learn the value of his cause, and he had to learn its cost. In the crucible of this war, you have finally, truly become family. During a brief halt, while the men gnaw on frozen bread and curse the cold, you sit with John on a fallen log, reviewing a crumpled map. Your fingers, red and numb with cold, trace the lines of rivers and roads. "Hal will think we've retreated to Philadelphia," John says, his voice a low rumble. "He won't look for us in the Jersey hills. It gives us the winter, a chance to heal, to regroup." "A winter is not a war," you reply, your gaze fixed on the map. You see not just the lines of ink, but the lives they represent. You see the farms that will be asked for supplies, the villages that will have to shelter soldiers, the long, vulnerable supply lines stretching back to New England. They will use the time to refit. They will bring more men from England in the spring, more Hessians. "Let them," John says, and there is no bravado in his voice, only a flat, unwavering resolve. He looks out at the exhausted men around you, at their gaunt faces and tattered uniforms. "We have something they don't." "And what is that?" you ask, though you already know the answer. He taps the center of his own chest. "We live here." It is the simplest, most powerful truth of this entire rebellion. It is the truth that has taken you months of terror, flight, and bloodshed to understand. You are not fighting to conquer a land. You are fighting for your own homes, for the soil beneath your frozen feet. It is an advantage no army, no matter how powerful, can ever overcome. You fold the map and tuck it safely inside your coat. The cold doesn't seem quite so biting anymore. You embrace the uncertainty. The future is a fog-shrouded valley, and you have no desire to see what lies within it until you arrive. The old Naomi craved the certainty of the king's order, the predictable rhythm of a life laid out for her. That craving was a weakness, a fear of the unknown. Now you find a kind of strength in it. The future is not preordained. It is not a gift from a distant monarch. It is a thing to be built, forged day by day in the fire of this struggle. And you are one of its architects. Your role has solidified. You are more than a spy, more than a nurse. You are a strategist. Your memory is a weapon. The casual conversations you overheard in loyalist parlors, the shipping manifests you glimpsed on a merchant's desk, the social connections between officers and their families. This is the hidden language of the enemy, and you are its fluent translator. In the councils of war, you speak with a quiet authority that the men have come to respect. You do not offer opinions on tactics, but you provide the facts upon which tactics are built. You are the quiet mind that helps guide the sword arm. The road ahead is impossibly long. You know this. There will be more winters, more hunger, more retreats. There will be defeats that will make the early days seem like child's play. There will be betrayals that will cut deeper than any bayonet. You will lose more friends. You will bury more boys like Silas. The hope kindled at Trenton and Princeton is a fragile flame, and the winds of war will try their best to extinguish it. But you are no longer afraid of the flame going out. because you have learned that hope is not a feeling. It is a discipline. It is the choice to get up one more time than you are knocked down. It is the choice to take one more step when your body screams for rest. It is the choice to believe in a future you may not live to see. As the army shuffles forward once more, you fall into step, the rhythmic tramp of thousands of feet, a dull thunder on the frozen earth. You look at the men around you, their faces set in a grim mask of endurance. You see their strength, their fear, their simple, stubborn refusal to be broken, and you hear it. Beneath the crunch of boots, the groan of wagon wheels, and the keening of the wind, you hear another sound. It is a rhythm that has become the core of your new existence. Scrape. Click. Scrape. Click. It is the sound of the soldier in the pulpit, the sound of John by the campfire. But it is no longer just his. It is the sound of the entire army. It is the collective work of thousands of hands, cleaning and tending their weapons, preparing for the next fight. It is the patient, methodical, relentless heartbeat of a new nation being born. And your own heart, once a terrified captive in your chest, now beats in perfect time with it. You are one beat in a symphony of revolution, and the road ahead, however long and dark, is your own. You are marching home. Years have passed, so many years that the war is no longer a wound, but a scar that aches when the weather turns. The calendar says it is 1787, and the world has not ended. It has been remade. You sit on the porch of a small house built just outside the city, a house that is entirely your own. The wood of the rocking chair is smooth against your back, its gentle creak a soothing, familiar rhythm in the twilight. From here you can see the lights of Philadelphia begin to flicker on, a constellation of candles in a sea of encroaching darkness. It is a city scarred, but it is a city breathing. It is free. The evening air is soft and smells of honeysuckle and damp earth, a fragrance you will never take for granted. For years, the night air tasted only of fear and smelled of wood smoke and gunpowder. Now, the sounds that drift up from the city are the sounds of peace. You hear the distant rhythmic hammering of a shipwright working late at the docks, the rumble of a lone carriage on the cobblestones, the faint laughter from a tavern down the road. These are the sounds of a nation getting on with the business of living, and each one is a quiet miracle. Your hands rest in your lap. They are not the soft, useless hands of the loyalist daughter you once were. The skin is rougher, the knuckles more pronounced. They are the hands that have packed cartridges, dressed wounds, and held the trembling shoulders of dying men. They have learned the language of hardship, and they do not forget. You think of the ghosts. They are always with you, but they are quieter now. Silas is a gentle ache, a reminder of the terrible, immediate cost of an ideal. You see him not crumpled in the snow, but as he was in the forge, his face intent, a small, perfect wooden bird taking shape in his hands. You have learned that this is how you honor the dead, not by dwelling on their dying, but by remembering their living. Levi Clark is a different kind of ghost. Her betrayal was a lesson in the complexities of survival, a mirror to your own desperate choices. John, in his quiet, brutal efficiency, used your information. Levi's network, the one that sold secrets to both sides with equal greed, was dismantled. She was arrested not as a Patriot spy, but as a British agent, a twist of irony so sharp it could draw blood. She was tried and imprisoned. You never saw her again. You do not know if she lived or died in that cell, and you have never tried to find out. The guilt is a cold, smooth stone you carry in your pocket. You do not try to throw it away. It is part of the price. Your price. The front gate clicks open, and you look up. Uriah walks up the path, his steps lighter than they were in the war years, but still measured. He is older, his face lined with a wisdom that has replaced his youthful arrogance, but his Quaker gray coat is still impeccably clean. He carries a basket filled with late summer vegetables from his farm, a small settlement he has built with other families who serve the cause without lifting a weapon. He sets the basket down and takes the chair beside you. For a long time you sit in a comfortable, shared silence, watching the stars emerge. They are still arguing, he says finally, his voice calm, in the State House, about what kind of nation this will be. Quote, "Let them argue," you reply softly. "It is better than fighting." He nods, his eyes on the distant city lights. John sent a letter. He is in the Northwest Territory. He says the land is rich, but the politics are richer still. He is helping to survey it. Building something new, he says. You smile faintly. Of course he is. John was never a man for peacetime. He was a man for the frontier, for the hard edge of a nation always pushing forward. He was a tool for the forging, and now that the shape is set, he moves on to the next piece of raw material. You are grateful for him, for his unwavering resolve that steadied you when yours faltered. You both did what was necessary, and you have gone your separate ways, bound forever by the blood and smoke of the fight. And you, sister? Uriah asks, turning to you. Do you find your peace here? You look out at the world you now inhabit. It is not the orderly, predictable world you once clung to. It is messy, loud, contentious, and gloriously, terrifyingly free. It is a nation of arguments, of possibilities. Peace, you have learned, is not the absence of conflict. It is the ability to choose your own battles. Yes, you say, and the word is true. I have. Later, after Uriah has gone, you linger on the porch, wrapped in a quilt against the cooling air. The night is deep now. The hammering and laughter from the city faded to a low, ambient hum. The world is settling into itself, preparing for the quiet labor of the dawn. The rocking chair creaks. The crickets sing their ceaseless, rhythmic song. These are the sounds that have replaced the scrape and click of the musket. The work of war is done. The work of living has begun. Your own personal revolution is over. The civil war within your soul has ended in a quiet truce. You are not two people anymore, not the loyalist and the spy locked in a desperate struggle. You are one woman, forged whole in the fires you walked through. You are the sum of all your choices, your betrayals, your sacrifices, your loves. You are a citizen of a nation you helped to birth, in ways no one will ever fully know. And that is enough. Your eyelids grow heavy. The boundary between the porch and your memories begins to blur. The scent of honeysuckle mingles with the ghost scent of wood smoke. The gentle creak of the chair becomes the groan of a wagon wheel on a frozen road. In the steady chirping of the crickets, you hear the faint, eternal echo of a promise, the patient, disciplined rhythm of a nation's slow and steady work. Scrape, click. The sound of a tool being tended, the sound of a future being built. As the sounds of the night lull you into a deep and dreamless sleep, you can hear the quiet hum of history, the whispers of a nation's birth, and the echoes of your own long, hard-fought peace. You have lived through a tumultuous time, and emerged stronger, more resilient, and committed to the messy, imperfect, and beautiful ideals of liberty. Good night.